Dito sa studio si Attorney Cynthia Rojas. At napansin ko kanina habang i-interview si Soljen Hardelesa, he admitted with yung may mga hindi siya maalam sa ilang judicial operations, At sabi niya hindi naman kasi wala nga din siyang experience being in the judiciary, never siya naging judge. Kaya hindi pa siya sigurado doon sa ilang mga tanong na tinatanong nila sa kanya. Is that a plus or minus factor? Pinakita niya yung candor niya at humility. Pero pinakita din niya na hindi din talaga niya alam. Ano yun? How do you gauge that?
I admire him for his candor. At the same time, he was very brave to say that he is willing to learn. So I think that's the reason why si Justice Peralta propounded all these questions on being prepared for the judiciary, yung systems and operations of the Supreme Court. And then he was saying that although he is not part of the judiciary, he is very much willing to learn. I think yung kaninang admission niya na he didn't know about that particular case, how to deal with that, I would give him plus points for the candor.
Okay, nandiyan na po ang susunod na interviewin, si Katrina Legarda, isang women's rights advocate at she received 2 Seroptimus International recognitions for women helping women at woman advancing the status of women.
I was competent and I could clean up the courts and I could manage and administer the ills of the courts, then I stand to be counted with everything that I have for the courts and for the lawyers who work with the courts.
Except for your very brief stint at the GSIS,
yes.
I believe that you have been in the private practice of law all throughout your legal career. What is it in your past that you have accomplished which makes you feel that you are ready to be at the helm of the Supreme Court?
Yes, I have been in the private practice of law for 32 years. However, in that private practice of law, I put up the Child Justice League, which we organized and administered in order to ensure that children in conflict with the law and children who have been abused are properly assisted in courts, and that requires a lot of administration and management because we work with the DSWD and all that the government entails in sense of red tape. Despite however brief I was at the GSIS, I cleaned up the law department, organized it into like a law firm, put the lawyers in the places where they should be, found out their strengths and weaknesses, and therefore was able to give the Board of Trustees sort of go-to lawyers. These are the lawyers whom you should go to, let's say, for foreclosures, for contracts, for legal opinions. So I organized them into maybe 5 groups, 3 under litigation and 2 under advisory and legal opinions.
What is your vision for a Supreme Court under the Legarda administration?
Well, somebody once said very recently that the face of the judiciary is actually the person of the judge. The concept of judicial independence, that is extremely abstract for the ordinary person and even for the judges who join the judiciary. So what is it that people understand? Litigants, lawyers, judges. They understand the concept of fairness and impartiality. So when you go to court as a lawyer, and I was a very active practitioner for 32 years, I always know when the judge has rendered justice. Because even if I may lose, I feel that I was treated impartially by that judge. And that is what I think I can bring to the court, the concept of fairness and impartiality. So equity as it might impact on the rule of law.
As a result of the impeachment trial, the concept of justice to be had in our country has become rather remote in the sense that most sectors feel that there is corruption in the judiciary. How do you think you will be able to address that perception, and how would you turn it all around so that people will have faith in the judicial system?
Well, I think a lot of the problem of the corruption in the judiciary, and it is an outrage to me because I know that there are honest judges. I know. I mean, 2 of them are sitting here. 3. Justice Peralta. Sorry, Justice. 3 of them are sitting here. I know that they are honest judges. So it is an outrage to me that there is this sweeping condemnation of the judiciary as being corrupt as a whole. And I think a lot of this has to do with the frustration that people feel when they do go to court and then they file cases against judges and judicial personnel. And it takes so long. So not only do they have to keep facing these judges and judicial personnel because it's taken 5, 7, 10 years for a case to be disposed of, either by the Office of the Court Administrator or even by the Supreme Court, depending on what the case is all about. And there is justice delayed and justice denied, and frustration festers. And worse, the ordinary Filipino, he doesn't understand that the lawyer does not want to go to court against the judge because he knows that he's going to be facing that same judge for his other clients. So it's a wheel, it's a never-ending wheel of frustration which sets in. So I think probably the first thing I will do is to reorganize the Office of the Court Administrator to facilitate and hasten the disposition of complaints against judges and court personnel. Make it fair to the personnel so that cases against them do not languish, thereby preventing their promotion to higher positions. And fair to the litigants, because at least when they go to court, they know that in a few months, this judge whom they are now facing may either be suspended or may be declared innocent of whatever heinousness was charged against him. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be done. When judges and court personnel know that the axe will fall, and it will fall quickly and exceedingly small, I think the concept of corruption may be addressed.
Perhaps it may help that you are able to monitor how the courts are doing, the lower courts are doing. What do you propose would be a good way of monitoring the performance of judges?
The problem right now with the way that judges are being evaluated is that all judges are evaluated under the same standards and criteria. So a family court judge, where some cases never end, support, visitation, these things never end. Custody. The family court judges are evaluated on exactly the same standards and criteria as a judge of another court, let's say environment, or let's say commercial courts, who do not have the same number of cases. So I think that monitoring them, I will probably suggest to the court that we change standards and criteria, monitor the caseload, perhaps think about asking if there is a constitutional amendment, perhaps think of asking them to return the constitutional provision that the Supreme Court need not give facts, issues, and the reason why you're dismissing the case in one. This takes a lot of time, when in fact many cases should never have even gone to the Supreme Court. So I'm sort of looking at something like the U.S. Supreme Court, where everyone knows that they will only handle X number of cases every year.
If you were to look back, was there something that you would have done otherwise, especially with respect to the promotion of children and women's rights?
would I have done something otherwise? Maybe I would have earlier begged the Supreme Court to implement the Family Courts Act and stop the designation, which is still ongoing, of family court judges to the RTCs. Up to now, they're just designated. So we have a lot of judges there who are just not interested in handling family cases because, well, they don't understand the psyche of the child, the family member going to court, the person who has to undergo the judicial system. So maybe so. But when we handled the prosecution of the former congressman rapist, there were still no family courts. When I was appointed by the Supreme Court as counsel de officio of a woman on death row, well, women in death row cases do not go to family courts. So this is something else I would ask, that there are some cases which perhaps should go to family courts and they should stop designating and actually appoint men and women who are interested in doing that kind of work. Because women cases do not go to family courts either. They go to the ordinary courts.
Thank you, Attorney Legarda. What is your opinion with respect to restorative justice? Do you think that we should limit the application of restorative justice to minors, or that we should expand its application?
I always understood the concept of restorative justice when we were helping students before, when I was a practitioner, when things happened. I always understood the concept of restorative justice to apply to all. That imprisonment and punishment was meant to be to assist a person return to the community. Unfortunately, I suppose it's a function of budget. Those who we bring into the court and the penal system and then incarcerate actually become even more criminalized in the prisons. Restorative justice, I think, is good because, especially if this is the first time you've done it. I mean, we're human beings. We all make mistakes. Kahit one mistake. The concept of restorative justice, I think, will bring back a lot of goodwill in the courts, especially when the ordinary man is picked up on the street because he is like Jalbert and he just stole a piece of bread to feed his child. If he can just return that bread or tell the person from whom he stole, my child is very hungry, I just needed this, I promise I cannot do this again, what can I do for you to help me restore my reputation? So restorative justice, I think, is for all, and I think particularly for those who cannot afford lawyers.
Would you go so far as to including in a judgment the requirement that the convicted rapist would have to undergo counseling?
Yes, not just counseling, but definitely not just counseling, but really extraordinary forensic therapy will be required for this convicted rapist. Right now, rapists stay in jail for the rest of their lives. There's not much restorative justice there. With respect to a child who cannot give consent, in my opinion, except that our criminal laws say that they can at the age of 12, I think a convicted rapist needs more than just counseling. He will need to undergo a lot of self-knowledge as to why this happened. And we don't have those trained to do that here.
Given my time limit, this will be my last question.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
your personal data sheet, you identified as one of your references Mr. Enrique Razon.
Yeah.
Could you explain why you put him as a reference, and what is your association with Mr. Razon?
Mr. Enrique Razon and I have actually known each other since he was a child because I was a good friend of his sister. So he has actually known me ever since he became an adult and I started working from then. I approached him on many occasions to help us with the Child Justice League and now with the Child Protection Network. We always need a lot of funds so that we can increase the number of lawyers that we have to help the child. And each time he has never, ever said no. And when we asked him to be on our board of trustees for the Child Protection Network, he said, although I'm not sure if I should take this on public TV, I cannot look at a child rapist in the eye. I might shoot him dead the next morning. So can I ask you to have my wife on our board? So we have his wife, Lizzie Razon, sitting on the board of trustees of the Child Protection Network Foundation, and both of them know how well I have administered and managed the needs that we have all around the country, not just in the Philippines, because we have child protection units also in Pakistan and in India, and how we help them administer and manage these units to help the child.
Thank you, Attorney Legarda, and good luck. Thank you, Justice.
Attorney Mejia.
Thank you, Justice Peralta. Good afternoon, Attorney Legarda.
Good afternoon, sir.
What is your greatest frustration as a lawyer?
Delay.
Delay.
Delay in the courts, yes. It is very frustrating, especially because the private litigant really does not understand why her or his case needs to be calendared only once a month.
Thank you. Should there be a gender perspective in deciding cases?
Well, there is substantial equality already between the woman and the man in the Constitution. There is gender perspective when it is appropriate, I suppose, like in the battered woman case, a child who may have come into conflict with the law or a child who has been sexually abused. But not all cases need a gender perspective, especially if crimes are applicable to all. Just because you're a woman or a man should not increase or decrease your penalty if you have committed an offense.
When you first learned that you will be required to submit a bank waiver, what was your reaction?
Okay lang, I have nothing to hide.
Okay. If you were in the position of Secretary de Lima, given that situation she confronted when, in the case of the departure of the first couple, how would you have dealt with the same situation?
Well, Secretary de Lima then dealt with it in a very political manner. She felt it was a decision which was based on politics, having been issued by people who had been appointed by the former president. So she treated it as a political issue and therefore rejected the decision, the order of the court. I'm not very political in that sense, and I actually don't look at justices as to who appointed them, because I find that once they have been appointed, most justices want their reputations to be preserved and not besmirched. They don't want to die knowing that their children's and their children's children do not respect them. So I probably would not have addressed it from a political point of view. Secondly, my understanding of the events, although I was at the time doing a project for the Philippine Women Judges Association, so I was actually in The Hague doing a final report for the MDG3 fund for the PWJA. My understanding was that Secretary de Lima was not actually a party to the case. And so she need not have been served a copy of the order. That's the understanding I have. and it was merely an order for addressed to the immigration with respect to the then president and first couple. So I probably would not have addressed it from a political point of view.
Is there any instance where you regretted a manner by which you handled a particular case in the past?
No. And I think it is because I treat people as fairly as possible. And in the last 12 years, I've been mostly in family law practice. And always my first concern are the children of this marriage, who did not choose to be born, and who have no lawyer helping them. So I have always addressed cases from the point of view of those who are going to be the most affected and have no counsel to assist them, or no venue upon where they can vent their needs or concerns. So in the last 12 years, no, not really.
Thank you, Attorney Legarda. That will be all.
Thank you, sir.
Justice Peralta. Good luck.
Justice Lagman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Legarda, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Now, in your opinion, did the impeachment of the former Chief Justice infringe on the judicial independence?
Yes, to a certain extent. Yes. Only because I felt that the grounds were not really impeachable offenses. Betrayal of public trust, not really. What they brought up against the Corona, not really impeachable offenses. Although I did see how the prosecutors tried to weave this into a general sense of betrayal of public trust. No, I say yes also because the courts became scared that when they displease a higher authority, they will have problems in the future with respect to the decisions that they will come out with. I felt it impinged a little bit on judicial independence because the morale of the courts plunged. And many of the judges I work with and justices in all the trainings and work I do for the Philippine Judicial Academy, in the very beginning were like lost sheep. What's going to happen to us now? And how can we tell the people whose cases we are hearing that this is not what the judiciary is all about? What is being brought up in TV against the Chief Justice? So, to that extent, yes.
Okay. Now, Attorney Legarda, what do you think is the advantage, if any, of having a lady like you sit as the Chief Justice?
A lady like me. I hope that I am able to persuade the present justices of the Supreme Court that I am not there to spy on them, nor am I there to report on any shenanigan that they may voluntarily or involuntarily find themselves in. I feel that the justices know that I have never approached any of them for any kind of favor. And I feel that my work is such that they know I'm a very hard worker. And I think that I will be able to talk to them, and ask for their help to cooperate in what a Chief Justice's role is. The Chief Justice is only one vote in a group of 15. So there is no Chief Justice who can really influence how a particular decision will come out. The role of the Chief Justice is management and administration, with the Office of the Court Administrator being like its implementing arm. The role of the Chief Justice is to find out what can we do to help the courts more, better working conditions, more access to the internet, more access to technology, improve the rules so that justice is not so delayed. So, motions like extensions of time and postponements and cancellations can just be done through the internet or Skype. Right now, justice is very expensive because I may have to go to Tuguegarao, for example, or Bacolod to find out somebody crucial is absent, because they will not accept. They will take to you, ay, attorney, tuloy yan. Yung pala, hindi tuloy. Pagdating mo doon, you've already spent for airfare, you've already spent for hotel, you've already spent for food, So I think if I were going to go there and be a young person there as a Chief Justice, I would probably have more energy, and having swept up, I think, and reorganized the GSIS legal department in a very short time, I think I have the energy to tell them, look, I cannot be as detailed and as wise and as deep in the handling of actual cases unless you give me a case to resolve, but give me the work of administering and helping you make life easier for the judges and for litigants. And I think I have the energy to do that. And it's something I actually enjoy doing. I actually enjoy putting things into order. It appeals to a sense of order that I have.
Okay. Some of the incumbent associate justices who are males are older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been there for quite some time. How are you going to lead the court with the moral ascendancy?
The face of the Chief Justice is just the outward face of the judiciary.
Yes.
I think that the moral ascendancy of the Chief Justice is not necessarily among his co-equals on the High Court, but rather on those below the High Court. I cannot have moral ascendancy over persons who are equal to me if I was to be Chief Justice. But I can certainly ask them to cooperate, to help me rebuild this very tattered reputation that the judiciary has right now. And I think that all of them will be interested and be concerned in